Hey guys, just wanted to jump on here really quick. I've had a lot of people reach out to me in terms of how they can support what I'm doing. I am doing this full time now, and if you'd like to contribute, if you like and value the work that I'm doing and like to contribute, on every single episode, I have a title "Support My Work." Underneath it, there's a Venmo, Locals, Cash App, or if you prefer not to use one of those methods, you can mail a check or money order to PO Box 25383, Scottsdale, Arizona 85255 9998. So, again, thank you for all the support. Appreciate it and look forward to more conversations ahead. Vince, it's been a long time coming. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
So let's just kick off with the whole narcissism because I don't know that I've ever had a deep dive on the subject of it. So here, let me
Right.
let me turn it over to you.
Okay. Okay. The word narcissism is narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder. It's getting thrown around a lot, especially with the rise and potentially demise of the woke mindset. Uh, uh, but I've had the unpleasant experience of being very closely affiliated with a narcissist that I couldn't, the real kind of, not some conceited pretty chick, the real kind of narcissist that I could not get away from. And the thing is with narcissists, as a human being, as a normally function, you'll end up going, this person's really messed up. And you'll end up, but I couldn't. I was attached at the hip with them. And before that, one of the people who raised me had a borderline personality disorder. So there's this trauma that comes with it. But the narcissist, um, because I was trapped with this person, right? I had to learn how to deal with them because there were other people present, children, and I didn't want them traumatized by it. But I was getting traumatized by it. So you read all the books, narcissism this, narcissism that, and I read all the books. Uh, but it was more like therapy for the person being abused, and I didn't want that. I wanted tactical behavioral ways to minimize the confrontation when being forced to deal with this person for my own sanity. And well, one of the things I stumbled on, I really forget where I stumbled on it because it's been. Let me just. I want to make sure I mute my phone, my silence it. One of the things I stumbled on a couple of years into this gut wrenching discovery was that narcissists, like sociopaths, like people with borderline personality disorder, like psychopaths in that respect, they that narcissists are 4-year-olds or maybe 3-year-olds emotionally. So you're talking to a 4-year-old, right? And you're or younger, let's say 3 or 2, and you're trying to make sure that they get the message you're saying to them. You don't use pronouns. You don't say, you shouldn't do that. You're a bad boy to your little kid. You say, Mike shouldn't do that. Vince is a bad boy. Vinny is going in the corner. Like you talk to them in the first person. And there's something very Freudian about it. It has to do with they don't see themselves separate from their behavior. They see themselves as separate from their behavior. It's very Freudian, and it's very like and the reason narcissism comes about and all those things, we could talk about that, but that's not the fun part. The fun part is figuring out how to deal with one. And I'm going to give your listeners, your viewers, a test to see if the person that they're dealing with is a narcissist. And it works. All right. So here's what I figured out. I figured out that from my reading, I was reading the DSM, reading all kinds of like textbook shit. The narcissist doesn't see themselves as a person. They see themselves as two people. There's the person you're talking to, and there's the person who does the work. It's almost like, an alter ego. And so when you're talking to little Mikey, you say, Mikey, you should put that cookie back. You don't say you should. You have to use their name, right? All right. So the first thing I learned was uh, the narcissist is the intelligence, presumably, of an adult with the emotional development of a 3-year-old. And I'm not judging it. I mean, you have to protect yourself against it, but many narcissists are the result of being raised by narcissists. I don't know where it starts. Maybe Eve or Adam were narcissists. And usually they're men, but the two that I dealt with were women. So when confronted with this person, having figured out everything and having survived it, it's like a survival thing. I tried it, and here's the Turing test for narcissism. When you're talking to someone and you say you're going to use a pronoun, don't address them always in the first person without pronouns. So my my nemesis was named Lisa. I'm making that up. And Lisa would make me late for something for whatever reason. Lisa's behavior made me not be able to perform. And so Lisa comes at me, berating me. You were this, you were that, you were this, you were that. And I literally would say to her, like I'm talking to a 3-year-old, and you should try this, and you'll know right away if the person you're talking to is a narcissist. I said, there's two types of statements. One is you throw back the accusation with their name. Well, if Lisa didn't forget to do this, then Vincent would have been there on time. It's insane to say that to another adult. Okay? I'll tell you what the reaction will be in a second. The second one is it's like you're a therapist talking to a 3-year-old. It sounds like Lisa's very upset. I mean, imagine talking to someone that's an adult like that. Just using those phrases, not patronizing. You're literally like, you're trying to get a point across to a 3-year-old. And the response tells you if you're right or not. If we were having a conversation and I said that to you the first time, a normal person would come back and say, let's see if he does it again. What the hell's going on here? Maybe I heard him wrong. Maybe he's quoting himself. I don't get it. Maybe he's like some character on Seinfeld. Remember what his name is? What was his name? I forget his name. There's a character in Seinfeld who just all refers to himself in the first person. All right. So anyway, but by the second or third time, you're like, whoa, I'm right here, dude. Talk to me with I'm right here. Don't talk to me like that. Well, with the narcissist, they don't do that. They literally respond like it's a normal conversation. But they don't say, I'm Lisa. They say, well, you did this. And I'm like, well, that upsets Lisa. Well, you did that. Like they act like it's a normal conversation. A normal woman at some point would either walk away from you, slap you in the face, or just like, you're an idiot, So that's the first thing. The first thing is talk to them like they're 3, and how they respond will tell you if the person is a hardcore malignant narcissist. That's the first thing. And look, put it this way: I had to do it with a person, and sadly, so that the children present were not affected by the confrontation. And afterwards, one of them had said to me the first time I really did it to see if I was crazy or not, said to me, why are you referring to her as Lisa? And I had to, it's not a sad story. It's just like, I go, you'll understand when you're older. They're still not old enough to understand, but they're old enough to know that I'm not the crazy one. Anyway, so that's the first thing. Refer to them like they're a 3-year-old that you're chiding or empathizing with. The next thing is, and this is kind of deep, the narcissist needs eye contact. Okay? They're extremely good at reading you from eyes. And that's how they survive. They don't really have a connection to their own inner emotions. They're really, they're a malformed whatever sense of self or empathy. But they read you like you're a shitty poker player. And when they look in your eyes, for some reason, I don't know why, but they're just better at it than normal people are. So they also need your attention. It's almost like it's like a comic book. When you lock eyes with a narcissist, the soul sucking starts. You have to break eye contact, and they demand eye contact to come back. And so you're in a situation where you'd have to have eye contact and you have to be paying attention. I started to wear mirrored sunglasses outdoors. These were not indoor. Like, I wasn't goofy, but I'm outdoors in the sun wearing sunglasses. And it's sunny. And you would not, I wasn't being, normally I would take them off to show eye contact with you, but I left them on because we were in a transition. I was getting ready to go in my car and go away. And it freaks them out. It just freaks them out. Uh, take your glasses off. I'm like, we're outside, you know? And it's like they can't handle. And then the next one is, there's other ones, but the next one is headphones. Like, you're wearing headphones now. That would probably make them kill you. But I would put earbuds in. This is other people giving me advice. Another person who understood it. You put earbuds in. I would have earbuds in, like, inside my ear, and I have the cord in my internal jacket pocket. Nothing was plugged in. And I could hear them perfectly. And they'd say, you're wearing headphones. Do you hear me? I hear you perfectly. I would actually say, nothing is on. Nothing is on. Why are you leaving them in? Because I'm going to put music on after I leave. Something, they make up some excuse. But if you cannot give them 100% attention, it freaks them out. So maybe it's not coming across as exciting as it could be, but this is bona fide truth. This is how it works. They need attention to suck your soul. And if they don't have it, they freak out. And they're easy to distract, like that dog in the movie Up, Squirrel, if you know the right things to say. So the final thing is not the final thing, but the final interesting thing, at least I think is interesting, is when a person who's got a narcissistic tendency is laying into you for whatever reason. They want the feedback, and no, it's my fault. I would give them feedback. Like, I'm a fixer. You say this is broken. I want to fix it. I want to fix it. And so it became this tennis match that I was half of the problem for. So the next thing I devised, this is my own thing, but it's like they need to be interrupted and redirected. So I'm standing there. You and I are standing outside, and you're humor me. You're Lisa. You're the narcissist, and they'd say blah 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 blah. They're saying what I'd say. Hold on 1 second. Vince is going to stand over here. And I would literally walk 1 foot and stop and face them again, and they'd forget what they were talking about. They would find something else to talk about. Anyway, so they're very easy to interrupt. It's kind of like you're talking to your miserable, buddy on the phone, and you just go like this. You just go, hold on 1 second, I got another call. Like, oh my God, this guy's out of his mind. Hey, dude. So, and that's it. So that's it. That's my story. That's my actual way to find out if you're dealing with a narcissist. So.
Well, and with that too, I've always found people like that, they never do anything wrong either. There's never accountability.
Oh,
There's never.
No, you're right. That's it. Do you want me to continue, or you want to keep going on with
No,
that?
I was just going to say, well, and they sniff out the weakness in people as well. So, they prey on people that are easily vulnerable, that they can basically bully. And, but the biggest thing I think with that is accountability. There's just no accountability with them. They never do anything wrong. It's always a victim. Somebody else is to blame. You wonder in the state of like where we're at as a society, is narcissism on the rise with people? Because nobody wants to hold themselves accountable.
I'll answer. Yes, it is. It is. It is. And I don't mean that in like a flippant way. We're creating a society of amateur narcissists. Looking at the camera. Videotaping. All these things are, but we're definitely showing narcissistic tendencies. I mean, Star Trek. William Shatner's Captain Kirk's bad side was narcissism, and he needed it to function. But we're just obsessed by it. I totally the accountability thing. That's a big part of it. They're not to blame for anything, absolutely, and how many times have you dealt with someone and they always have an excuse? That's not a narcissist. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's not the narcissist is like that other thing is the reason, it wasn't me doing it. You're absolutely right. And in fact, the reason that Lisa will keep talking to me, even though I'm saying Lisa and not you, is because she is not accountable for the actions. Lisa is. You follow me? There's two people in front of you. It's like, you didn't do that. She's like, you're right, I didn't do that. Lisa did. So when you talk to Lisa, she'll accept it. It's almost like they don't know how to, they don't know how to act. And so the person in front of them is like this disguise. That's Lisa, right? So they don't mind that you're attacking Lisa, as long as you're not attacking them, and it works. To your point about accountability, that ends up translating within their mind, someone else is to blame. Always, even when they are to blame. They don't push back and say, like the ones that I deal with, they don't push back and say, well, yeah, but that's a normal person. Well, yeah, but you did this. They don't do that. They just and they turn victim. I mean, now we're talking about the whole woke situation. Uh, perpetrator, perpetrator, perpetrator. And when they read the room and they realize that perpetrator is not giving them power anymore, they can flip to victim in a heartbeat, which is, I think, what you were hinting at. I agree. So, but a society of narcissists is a society that doesn't have any executive function. There's a book about it, not about it, but I would recommend that whoever is listening to this, if they're interested in this topic, you don't have to read the whole book, but it's an old book written in the 80s by a Polish immigrant. The name of the book is Political Ponerology. So it's ponerology. Like, what the hell does that word mean? It's ponerology is the study of evil. Now, I'm not saying the book is the greatest book in the world, but the first two chapters, it's written by this Polish guy, and Poland. See, it was ground zero for narcissism and sociopathy, because in Poland, the Germans invaded, right? And then the Germans invaded, and he know because he was an academic, right? And he's like, at the universities, we went from having academics that could teach being replaced by academics that preached. And he goes, I found out eventually that these people were sociopaths or narcissists, and they would turn everyone into little junior narcissists. And he said the reason he's so comfortable saying it, because in his group of people they happen to be sociologists. He goes, and then when the Germans got thrown out, we got the Russians, and they were doing the same fucking thing in communism. But anyway, he talks about the evolution of a society, the de-evolution, I should say, going down the, narcissism or sociopathic well. And the first chapter or two describes what I just said much more eloquently. And if you read it now, because I read it before the whole progressive woke thing happened, I was reading it because, frankly, I was trying to find out about Lisa. I'm like, oh, this looks like something I should read. And now I look at that book and I say, you know what? That's where we are. So love him or hate him, at least Trump's going to stop this for a while. For a while, at least, anyway.
Do you think because of it's on the rise and that nobody wants to hold themselves accountable anymore, that it's a society that you're watching collapse of our society?
Oh man, that's a rabbit hole I go down. Yes, yes. Whether it's incidental, intentional, or accidental, yes. I mean, there are several concepts that are at play that I think about when I think about the question you asked, and one of them is, at the political side, all politicians seek to atomize us, and by atomization, it's like polarity, right? And the reason atomization is a good word to use from people who study this stuff is like they basically separate us into individual molecules. It's like an atomizer spraying water in the air. And then once they separate us, left and right, then they can regroup us to where we want. Now on the left, you can see it like, atomize them literally, like figuratively and literally. You're locked in a room during COVID. You have no access to other people. There's no real community. There's no real dialogue. And by the way, dialogue like this, whether you agree or not, your brain is like 50 to 75% thinking. But monologue, whether it be alone with yourself or online, your brain's only like 7% thinking. Everything else is rote. Anyway, so they atomize us, they regroup us and remold us the way we want. And it's a tactic that has created a partisan divide, and now they're reaping it. The other thing that you said the word collapse. And this is a book I recommend if you're interested in this topic. There's a book by uh, his last name is Tainter, Tainter. It's called the Collapse of Complex Societies. So short term is complexity collapse, and uh, and and some of the hallmarks of complexity collapse. Without you don't have to read the whole book. You read the first chapter, you'll get it. Some of the hallmarks of complexity collapse are exactly what you're describing, and that would be uh, yeah, I have it right here. The hallmarks of complexity collapse are specialization in work, right? So people no longer are able to function competently as human beings, changing a tire or logging in online. They can only do one or the other. Um, uh, so specialization of duties. Everyone that's graduating from school has one type of degree, MBA, but behaviorally, uh, the collapse leads from. I mean, look, I'm giving you an archaeologist, anthropologist mindset, and I'm not either of those. The practicality of it is you're destroying the social fabric, and when you destroy the social fabric, you may survive for a long time, but eventually it's a tipping point thing and everything collapses. So I'm not predicting the collapse of civilization. I am saying that this is the path that we're on, and I think some of it is being done by sociopaths who don't care about what they leave behind in their wake. So yeah, collapse of complex societies. Real, and it's big in Europe right now. What I mean is what they describe in chapter one and what Taylor describes in chapter one is what's going on in Europe right now. Rampant. I mean, rampant immigration, a social safety net that's stressed and can't handle it, specialization of the labor force, and I'm almost quoting literally an inclusive mindset that wants to take care of everyone, and it ends up being too much and it collapses. So yeah, I think it's a sign. It's a sign that there is a collapse. Now there's a counter sign to that I think is going to start happening, and it's already happened in China. So I don't think we're dead yet from that point of view. Um, do you want me to talk about the counter sign, the hope
Yeah,
part?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you
Right.
say the hope? Did you say hope?
The hope part. Yeah, the
Oh,
hope part.
people,
Not,
because I talk about how much like I hate that word, so that's why it's funny you say that because people are going to be like, oh, Vince said hope, you didn't, and let me
you didn't
clarify, let
address
me
it
clarify,
exactly.
let me just clarify this for you because everybody else knows, but you don't. So
Right, right.
I don't like the word because if hope is not a strategy, and I like to look at things objectively to where we really are. And
Yeah.
I have people message me, you're a doomer, blah 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 blah, and I don't want to bore the audience saying the same old thing, but I just don't believe in crossing my fingers, closing my eyes, and hoping that God. And I'm not saying you're saying that, but like, and hoping that
No.
God is going to just save me. Because
Right.
I've come
No, no,
across
I
people that
understand.
are super religious, and they literally like they just pray on things, but they don't want to do
They're
anything.
hoping God will take care of
Yeah, they
it.
just they just they pray on it and just hope that
Right.
it'll resolve.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Hope is so. First of all, yeah, hope is like the optimism part of it. But yeah, hope is not. What's the expression you said? Hope is not a strategy. That's exactly
I
right.
got that
You
from my
can't
friend Michael
fucking
Yan. Michael Yan always says that.
yeah. That's hope is not a strategy. There's a joke about that. Was it? There's a guy. There's a guy who's and this invokes God, but it doesn't have to be God. It can invoke government. It can invoke
And I'm not
hoping
against
something.
God, by the way, either, for people listening. Because
Right,
I'm
right,
yeah, right,
exactly,
right, right,
exactly,
right.
exactly. I'm not incredibly observant, but I'm not an atheist either. Um, but there's a guy. He's on the roof. His town is flooded. He's on a roof, and he's dead now, by the way. He drowned, right? But before he drowned, a boat. He's talking to God. He's like, God, I called you and asked you to help me. It could easily be the government didn't help me. It's about hope, and that's what this. The destructive hope is this. Destructive hope that makes you keep doing the same thing or doing nothing and hoping that something will change. It's like you almost want a scapegoat. But anyway, this guy's on the house and a guy in a rowboat comes by and he says, "Come on in, I'll help you." He's like, "No, no, no. God will take care of me." Then he's on the house and the water's rising up and then a guy with a helicopter comes by and says, "I'm here to pick you up." He's like, "No, no, God will take care of me." And, a couple of these other things happen. And the guy ends up dying. And he goes up to heaven and he goes like, "God, he's like, I sent you a rowboat. You didn't get in, right? You didn't literally just get in the rowboat. I sent you a helicopter. You didn't get in. I sent you a life raft. I sent you dolphins, that you could ride on their back. You didn't use them. So,
Dolphins.
that part I made up, but that's actually pretty funny. I mean, they weren't alligators, but yeah. I mean, that's the destructive hope is actually a clinical phrase. I was talking like a therapist today, but destructive hope is a clinical phrase. It's hope that makes you do nothing, basically. It destroys you. But the hope side, right? The optimism side. Is that where we were?
Yeah,
Where
you
were
were
we?
you were doing the counter. Before I interrupted
Okay.
you.
The counter is, and you can see this, like we're not talking abstraction shit here. There is a parallel. The parallel with the US, say the last, say 8 years, where we went from political correctness to condemning someone for not being politically correct. There's the people are just starting to talk about it, but something I paid attention to for a while. There's a parallel with what Mao did with Maoism. So in China, if people aren't familiar with it, what Mao did a bunch of things. Well, one of the things he did was he encouraged the youth to rebel against the elders. He encouraged the youth to destroy the established ways. So in cultural terms, China was Confucian, which is like to say China's Confucian is to say Protestant or work ethic or conservative, and false goods and bads aside, but the society was family oriented. It was all very Protestant work ethic in China, Protestant religious mindset. Confucianism would be their equivalent of that. And what Mao did was he turned the youth against their elders. They got rid of Confucianism. They got rid of all traditions, and that's consistent with the communist mindset, the revolution. You want to get rid of the old, out with the old, and in with it. Like there are pictures of grandparents or older people wearing dunce caps, being berated by these 16-year-old girls holding red books, which is what everyone's talking about now, the Red Book app or whatever the hell, one book. It's the same thing. But that was China under Mao. So I want you to think that to an extent we were on that path. Karens are 16-year-old girls, telling you what to do. Maybe not because you're older, but they're progressives and they're a necessary part of society. But progressives were just there's too many people on the progressive side of the boat, and everything was just being turned over to be turned over. Well, in the end, one of the things that was a hallmark of Mao's failings was at one point he said, like he basically had street gangs of kids at one point, and he said to them in some town or some area, because China's so big, he said, we don't just destroy them. We don't need them, like post offices or something like that. And these people like took him literally and said, take over the town. He's like, you control things. Like it's a pep talk. You control things. And they just took over the town. Like thousands, apparently hundreds or thousands were killed. And he literally had to send something he didn't want to do. He said, I'd never do this. He had to send in the army to stop them. So when you look at what China has done since then, since Mao, so here's the empirical evidence. Confucianism is on the rise. It has been for the last 20 years. Conservatism is on the rise. They're going to keep calling themselves communists, but they're capitalists. They're not going to become democratic. They're authoritarian, but it's a form of capitalism. And it's markets. It's not free markets, but it's markets. And They're doing things that conservatives would do. They're rewarding families. Like, before it was if you have too many kids, we'll arrest you or kill you. Now it's like they obviously they need it. They want people to have kids. Confucianism is on the rise. Discipline. You see these things about these Chinese kids in class and getting their shit together and doing it right. That's relatively new. Like they were on the like these people were eating tree bark 50 years ago. Like they had no food, like mal destroyed everything. So you want to bring that to us. If I'm right in my analogy, in my parallel, you will see in the US as conservatism takes hold or as progressivism recedes, you will see a rise in religiousness. Now, there are two times that uh, religiousness is probably not a word, but people get more religious. That's when the world's ending, so they have to become religious, or there's a return to a need for moral standards. Because if you don't have the moral standards, society ends up collapsing, as you implied. So I think you're going to start seeing an uptick in religion. That's it, and people are going to start looking for an alternative to the removal. What the removal of absolutes is what the left is all about. Everything's relativistic, and so there has to be an absolute. If there is no absolute, then there's no goal to shoot for. There's no goal to shoot for. Well, let's do whatever the fuck we want, and we're realizing we can only do whatever the fuck we want for so long. So I think religion is if religion rises, we're going to have the reversal of this collapse that we've been going through. And it seems like it's starting. Elon Musk is not a religious type, but you're going to start seeing it. Anyway, so
Do you,
that's my story.
do you think it's accredited though? Also, I mean, you're a commodities guy.
Yeah,
I mean, do you think the rise of religion would be due part to I mean, we got a lot of financial headwinds coming our way,
yeah,
and I'm
we do.
posing that as a question, but not to be assumptive, but could that be the reason that people? I mean, we're in a mess, right, Vince?
No, no. Wait, we're gonna. It's funny because it's almost like there's a Venn diagram of three or four things. One of them is the religious one, right? Another one is uh, the societal, political one. Now you get into the financial one, and now you're speaking my language. Yeah, the world, and I'll just say with the West, with the U.S. As the tip of the spear, financialization. The word financialization means leverage. It means that. So to take a bar of gold and to hedge it three or four times, that's leverage. That's rehypothecation. You can get into all like the paper trading and how bad it is and how wrong it is, but it's all leverage. So the lack of real things being used worked with leverage because leverage is time. I'll get the gold to you next week. So leverage. Everything is borrowing. It's like debt, leverage, financialization is borrowing based on trust. And that, you could it's got similarities to a Ponzi scheme. It's not a Ponzi scheme, but but there's enough of it going around. Uh, the the financial, if we were to do nothing, we will collapse. And the financialization uh, uh, is the reason for it. So it's almost like the BRICS are doing us a favor. I really mean that. The BRICS, I'm not sure how familiar people are with that, but the BRICS, the Eastern countries, forget Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, those countries, while they're not, uh, while they're authoritarian, they're capitalists. And they have this realist mindset. Look, these are commodity producing countries, and we're not. Like manufacturing's gone, right? Manufacturing's gone, and they have the manufacturing. If you were to divide the world into a company, we're management, and the BRICS are labor. They do the work, they supply the raw materials, and we create metaphorically now the finished product using intellectual capital and using financialization. You can make the case that financialization is the way we collect money from other countries for putting military around there. It supports our army. But anyway, thank God. The point is, thank God that the BRICS went on strike as a union. They're like, nope, after COVID, can't have our stuff so cheaply anymore. Nope, can't have our labor so cheaply anymore. And that has forced us to get out of this, this abstraction of like, the correlation this, the leverage that. It's like, oh shit, I don't have the thing I need to do the thing I need. We can no longer, it's preventing us from kicking the bucket down the road. So financialization on the path that it has been on for the last 50 years is will continue. If it continues, would lead to our collapse. And it's funny because financialization, what got us out of our last mess. It's just a pendulum. Everything gets overdone. Like in the 70s, we couldn't compete manufacturing wise. Everyone was cheaper. So we turned the engine off for manufacturing, let all the manufacturing leave, and we became a service economy. And what's a service economy? Finance, insurance, leverage, abstractions, right? And now here we are 50 years later, living too high off the hog, having it too easy, depending on everyone else to give us the stuff that we benefit from, and we give them bonds as compensation, loan money, and we can't do it anymore. So it's like we've gotten away from our roots so far that the tree is going to fall over. The tree's too top heavy. It's going to fall over. And so branches have to be pruned, and those branches are financialization. And so that's it. I hope that makes sense.
Do you think that so am I understanding you right to where these institutions can be salvageable in your eyes? Because
which by these institutions, which these?
In terms of like the dollar, the debt load, like I mean, I can go into the FBI, CIA, the help, all those other,
Right. At the broadest level, before I bring it to specifics like the dollar and that, at the broadest level, trees need to be pruned. Things will be salvaged. Absolutely. It's not the end of the world, right? However, going back to Tainter, what he noticed in the most recent collapses was there's no more collapse. We know the collapse is coming at a societal level. Like Inca, Maya, Rome, all these places, all the way to the British Empire. And he noticed that at the British Empire, they figured it out. Meaning they slow the collapse, they reseed the industries that are causing the problem and slowly transform things. So I don't think we'll have an outright collapse. I think we've learned from our event in the 70s. However, it's very simple with regards to the debt. The dollar is a form of debt, but it's very simple with regards to the debt. We have too much debt for what we produce, for what we do, for what we contribute to the global economy. We don't have the materials and low cost of labor to compete globally in a manufacturing way. And the world needs to go back to manufacturing. It's become a mercantilist environment where you have to export actual goods to make money, not export finances or some fancy idea. So when you look at the debt at the simplest level, it's like this. All right, we have too much debt. The United States is a kid that spent all their allowance and spent their next 3 months' allowance. And the United States is going to their dad and saying, I'll pay you back next week. And the dad happens to be China. And I don't mean that they're our father. What I mean is that they happen to hold the key to the purse strings right now. And so your dad says, no, do without. So now you're the kid and you either have to find someone else to borrow money from, right? Or you have to, not buy baseball cards that week. You have to do back. So either we have to find someone else to lend us the money. This is like real finance. They're doing this now. You have to find someone else to lend us the money, or your standard of living has to go down. You buy less baseball cards, or you monetize the debts, which is kind of a segue to Trump's situation. So ultimately, we need someone else. We're going to do a mix of all three. right? So our standard of living will drop while we retool the economy, just like in the late 70s, right? Our We'll find someone else to buy our debt. We've already been playing the daisy chain game. We're parking it in Japan. We're parking it in the UK, and you can even make the argument that we're encouraging people to put it to hold treasuries to park them in Tether to buy Bitcoin. Like you're turning a debt into an asset that goes up. So um, we're trying to find other people to own our debt. And there's other ways to do that as well. And then the third thing is our standard living will down, debt will go down. Find someone else to buy our, yeah, and we have to rebuild our manufacturing. So it's a matter of do we have enough time to do it, and we will, but it will probably cost a generation. 20 years from now we'll be fine. 10 years from now, I'm not so sure. If Trump doesn't get what he has to get done, and it's not embraced by the country in general broadly. Um, in a Reagan fashion, we could be in a lot of trouble. I think we could be in a whole lot of trouble. Yeah.
What have you done in the short term then, the 3 to 5 year? Because and this is my concern with what you just said. Even all these promises are always made right during campaigns. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But I don't think people realistically and objectively understand where we are, and that you can't just come in and just move pieces around and fix things.
Right.
And we're so
right.
short-sighted to where, he really only has a year. Because next year you're already back in an election,
Bingo. Keep going. Keep saying like that's like the stuff that people need to hear that. They need to hear that.
Well, and people, they want all these things to happen. Well, no, none of these political people that are up for re-election next year are going to do anything to compromise their positions. So now he's got a year. You can't just bring manufacturing back in a year. It just doesn't work that way. Oil drilling. Yeah, I got Tracy. Tracy's coming on tomorrow. He did that executive order for oil drilling.
Yep.
I'm not an expert or an analyst in that, but I don't think you can build. I don't think you can start drilling within a week and just get it all pumping.
Right. I can speak to that. Energy is something that I focus on as well. But the bigger picture of what you're saying. First of all, energy is not going to happen overnight as well. But energy drillers are ready. It's already picked out. All they have to do is hit it. And when they hit the button and start it, oil won't go down tomorrow, but the futures market will start to digest it. They'll look at future production, kind of like future earnings, and it will help. But the bigger picture, the bigger point that you made that I think should be focused on is I give him a year generously, but people that are more focused on this give him 100 days. Okay, not to get everything done, but to get everything clicking. So Michael Hartnett, he's the CIO for Bank of America, and I read his stuff religiously. And the point, look, first of all, you made the point about people think it's going to happen overnight. That, by the way, is part of the atomization. We were smarter 20 years ago about this. You would say it's going to happen overnight, FOMO, this is great. And then you'd get in your crowd of people, and one of them would say, and then you have a conversation about it. Be like, no, this is not going to happen overnight. And this conversation that you and I are having is the substitute for that. There is no more group conversation. There's only everyone isolated in their room seeking out the person who thinks like them. Oh, he's right. And so, that division makes it easy for Trump to sell the Trump coin. There's no healthy skepticism in isolated groups. But bringing that to the point, Trump has a mandate, which is a loose term here, but that mandate lasts, let's use your time frame, a year. Because if he doesn't make substantive progress in the first year, all those rhinos, all those regular Republicans and the Democrats are going to hammer the shit out of him and not comply. And so what happens is he goes from mandate to lame duck, period. That's it. It's over. Midterms come up. I got to get reelected, that sort of thing. But it's actually there's some really cool nuance that Hartnett brought up, and that is we can go down that rabbit hole if you want, but the gist of it is he wants to get tariffs raised to compensate for taxes lowered to then take and spend more money that than Biden would have spent, but he's spending it on things that grow the economy to grow the economy. Well, guess what? If any one of those legs, the tariff or tax thing doesn't go, he's screwed. He can't get it done. It doesn't take much to stop what he's trying to do. And using Hartnett's number now, if he doesn't show progress in the first 100 days, like every president has 100 days where they can do whatever they want. If he doesn't show meaningful progress in the first 100 days, then he's done. And I agree. His plan, which I understand, his verbal plan is, I'm going to raise tariffs and have them pay tariffs on our stuff. I'm going to lower taxes. I'm going to take the money. I'm going to spend it on making America great again, building factories. Well, it's really not that much different than what Biden was doing. The IRA, mind you, Biden was spending it on different things, but let's assume that Trump's is better, and it is better. The Trump's is better is because what he really means, get rid of the hype. What he really means is we need to become a really low cost, efficient manufacturing economy. And in order to do that, we need to make factories. And in order to do that with minimal pain to our standard of living and to our credit rating at the debt level, we need to harness what we have. And that is, we need oil prices to be lower. We need to use cheap energy to help rebuild manufacturing, to help rebuilding our export. And if we get it done, everything else takes care of itself. The tariff thing, who's going to pay these tariffs? We are. It's inflation. It's strong. Tariffs are strong dollar inflation, right? And by the way, now we go out to your 1 year. 1 year comes out, and let's say he hasn't done everything. Well, if you can't get the tariffs done and lower the taxes, and you can't get the economy going more, so that it'll justify your deficit spending. Nobody wants deficit spending now. Democrat, Republican, nobody wants it. That window's going to close fast on him. If he can't get those things done in sufficient capacity, then he's going to have to goose the economy to get those things done another way. And the way to do that is to weaken the dollar. So if he doesn't get what he needs to get done soon, he needs to weaken the dollar to hide the debt. And so his policies will, as his policies fade away, is the excitedness of them, you'll see the dollar weaken. And as the dollar weakens, the economy will weaken, and then Powell will have to ease, or whoever's successor is. But yeah, I think if we get out of our little bubbles, our little social media bubbles, or our little podcast bubbles, not saying that this one is, but we're going to realize that this shit's not easy to do, and he knows it. That's why he's hyping it so hard at the beginning, because he wants to keep momentum anyway. So I don't think he's going to be able to get it done. How's that? But which answer your question was 3 to 5 year period. In 100 days, if he doesn't check a couple boxes for me, I think we will be intentionally weakening the dollar very aggressively over the next 3 to 5 years. So to put it in like a historical perspective, if he gets it done, it's 1983 when the economy was coming out of retooling itself. If he doesn't get it done, it's 1976 when the market was just hitting the next wave of inflation where it went to 13, 14, 15%. So that's what I think. If he's successful, 1982, and we've dodged a major recession. If he doesn't get it right, it's 1977, and we have major inflation to avoid a recession. So that's my bottom line. So the 3 to 5 area is hard for me to handicap. That's the hardest time frame for me to handicap. So you pick the hard one.
When I had Martin Armstrong on, he's talking about how the tariffs will be detrimental, and they're still talking about moving forward with it, because he was speaking in relation to when they were doing it in the past. You didn't have the big of a state or big of the federal government as an employer as it is today.
That's right.
So what is he thinking? Vince, I know you're not in his head, but
no. I think that's a bait and switch. The Martin Armstrong statement, just to elaborate on that for a second, that's very true. When you go back and you say, look, I read some stuff that John Paulson had written. And John Paulson was recently very vocally pro-tariff. To understand the tariff thing, Trump is saying, and why it won't work, right? Okay. And then tying that in with Martin Armstrong, Trump is saying, I'm going to use tariffs to offset most of the tax reductions that I'm going to give everyone. And we're going to borrow the rest of the money to do the building. Fine. Okay. Plus, this is the Trump hype part. Not hype, but this is the Trump brand part. Plus, everyone who gets tariffed, I'm going to tariff Germany. You can't bring anything over to us with a 100% tariff, making it up, right? Well, he's going to get carve-outs. BMW is going to come to him and say, dude, you can't do that. We can't well, build a factory here, right? Well, that factory's not magic, right? It doesn't happen magically. So, but bringing the factory here creates jobs. It's a win. So basically, he's taking any business. It's kind of like a stadium that's getting hot dog vendors. You're getting other businesses to come in, and you're excluding other people. Well, he's going to brag about that shit, and that shit ain't easy to do, and it doesn't happen overnight. And even if it does happen overnight, 6 months later you run into problems because of this, because of that, and nothing gets done. The promises are honored. So that's what he wants to do, and his sales pitches, they'll move here, and some are going to move here. Now we go to the Martin Armstrong thing. So on top of that, let's assume that Trump gets no one to move here, because they're all going to negotiate. They're all going to be like, yeah, I'll build my factory there. He's not in a strong position. We're not the biggest economy. We're the biggest consumption economy, but we're moving away from that. He's not going to get all these companies. They're going to negotiate with him like Apple did. Apple will hire 10,000 people. A year later, they hired no one. They fired people. But they got tax credits. They brought money back with tax abatements. Carrier air conditioner, same thing. So you win, you declare victory, and then 6 months later you bury the retraction on the final page. But the Martin Armstrong thing, he knows probably a lot. He definitely knows a lot more about this than I do. But the situation back then, I'm going to come into what he said in a back-ended sort of way. At the American Revolution, we didn't have a federal government, right? Other than whoever was running it. And the problem with the reason that tariffs worked then is, at a simple level, we were a colony. We were chopping down trees, we were selling them to England for pennies on the dollar, and then we were buying their tables, right? So Washington and everyone after him said, you know what? We're going to make our own tables. You want to buy their table? It's 500% markup. Something ridiculous. And that policy worked again later on, and that's what Trump is citing. But he didn't have the monthly nut to pay. And in order to do that, let's assume that I'm going to push back on Martin. I don't mean it, but let me push back on Martin here and say, yeah, but he's going to fire all those government employees. Martin, you're wrong. It's like, no, he's not going to fire those government employees. This isn't Reagan sending air traffic controllers home. This is truckers going, we're going on strike. You can't, he didn't eliminate the deep state. They're just going to morph, these people want to keep their jobs. So you've got government workers. They can't work from home anymore. Yeah, that's what Elon did. That's not going to go over so well. They vote. Can you imagine being a Republican in a district of Democrat, say blue collar Republicans that are really Democrats? And now all of a sudden, he's firing government workers. Like, let's say you live in a town that's all mailmen. They're probably conservative to begin with, but they need their jobs. I think the monthly nut, the monthly expenses that we have to finance the government, the employment part, makes Martin Armstrong's point very valid. I mean, you have to fire all these people. This isn't Malay chainsaw stuff. Oh yeah, he's going to reduce government, but these people are dug in like a tick. You can't fire them. And what do you do? Let's pretend he fired everyone tomorrow. Well, now you've got 10% unemployment. What are you going to do now? It's not that easy.
Well, and also, that 10%, then they're not spending money into the economy either.
Wait, who's they? You
If you
mean
let's say
us?
no, if you lay off say 10% of the federal government, that's
Yeah,
10% of money that's not going into the system. And here's the other thing
that's right.
too that somebody I don't want to take credit for, but you're talking about this Doge, which I think is ironic because we're supposed to be getting away from government, but yet we just created another agency, another
Dude, how yeah, that's completely yeah,
and
exactly.
Elon.
Hey,
Nobody elected Elon, but I'm still a little bitter at him because or not him, but his company, because I got censored on X, limited visibility on a post talking about Bitcoin and the Trump meme coin a couple days ago.
right?
You can't share it. I can't share it. I can't even send it to
Really?
you. Yeah, they totally locked it down.
Yeah, you haven't. I started following you recently, and you're not on my feed at all. Like, where the hell is this guy? Like
I
get a
don't even
coffee.
know. I don't even know I don't like that whole thing. I mean, I played it for Melody Wright yesterday, and I said, there's nothing in this. There's nothing in this, and yet
What was the? I mean, the topic was what?
we were talking
Bitcoin
about
and
he Marty Bent, which was talking about the book Money Never Dies. Because he texted
yeah.
me later. He texted me later on, and he said, "I don't know, maybe using the word dies." I go, "Yeah, but it was in relation to a book title. It wasn't like saying,
No,
I
no.
hope Vince dies. I hope
Marty's pretty. I haven't seen. You know what? I haven't seen Marty recently either, and he's a pretty good guy to follow.
maybe we're on the list." But Elon, nobody elected him, and yet all of a sudden he's got an email address at the White House, and he's heading up this agency. And
Oh
well,
yeah.
so where I was going with it is, let's say you're going to come into the federal government, right? You're going to clean house. What if the majority of them are black people? What is that going to do in terms
Oh yeah.
of, he's
Yeah.
Trump's firing black people?
Oh yeah.
It's not that
I mean,
easy.
he can't win. He can't. Like he he's going to do what he can do and get away with and win and declare victory. But your comment about the Elon thing. Um, First of all, I may be wrong. I don't think I am. Doge, and I'm not contradicting you, but I'm just letting people know. Doge is not a fucking government agency. It's going to be a PAC that's going to give, like, a K Street PAC that's going to give advice so they can do it. It's not like he's got the whole thing is just completely, the whole thing is it's hype in this sense, like he's going to get stuff done until somebody pushes back. And I think the people that are looking to push back, they're waiting for the one that works. They want him to get over his skis, I guess is how you'd say it. But it's funny because people that are people that are like the right is like, oh, censorship is gone. No, it's not gone. See, the left controls opinion by shutting you off. The right that says free speech, and then they just turn off your megaphone and give someone else another megaphone. It's amplify versus, the left de-platforms, the right de-amplifies. So that's it. Like you're not censored, but no one's going to hear you. No one's going to hear your voice. You're allowed to say what you want, but you don't have a right to be heard. And that's his business. He can do that. But I, yeah, it's just I wonder where the rift is between Elon and Trump, because Trump isn't one to share the stage, and it's like fascism versus socialism. Who's winning here? The government or the business. Anyway.
Well, what I find, also with all that is, Larry Ellison with Oracle, you saw that the other day, right? Where he was
Oh
talking about
yeah,
that.
it's fucking crazy.
But initially I get all this pushback because they're like, oh, you're so negative. You don't focus on any of the positives. I'm like, okay, I do. I thought the J6 release of the J6 prisoners, I thought that was great.
Wonderful.
Yeah. He closed the border down. There's nothing going on at the border right now. Great. But also with Larry Ellison and the whole idea of this AI and, more of a surveillance state. Initially I was like, okay, this is day 2 and we're already here. We're already talking about this. We
Yeah,
couldn't have
yeah.
waited like a couple of weeks.
But that's the point. I think he's just doing it for the headlines.
Well, but also though too, you look at this, we're in a surveillance state. We're already in one.
I, that's right. You're right.
I mean, everybody's got a Ring camera at home. You don't think that, I mean, if they want to, if the government wants to
That's
access that,
crazy. I don't have one. I don't use face recognition on my phone, and I know that using my fingerprint is enough. But the point is like yeah, I mean, we're in a surveillance state. We're a kinder, gentler surveillance state. Russia and China are just straight up surveillance states. Yeah.
UK surveillance state.
Yeah. Right. The cameras outside, that's crazy.
Every
Yeah.
car today, every single car has a camera system in it. You tell me that they can't watch that? Every phone, I mean,
That's
every
right.
text message, every email.
Right. That's right. That's right. Oh, it's encrypted end to end. We don't care about the end to end. It's the middle that matters. That's what they can read.
Yeah.
That's what they can
I
see.
don't even get, you know what? I don't have Proton Mail or I mean, I
Right.
use Telegram, I use Signal, but you're going to tell me that they can't access it? I mean, if they couldn't access Telegram before, they can now because Pavel Durov, I still haven't heard from him. Last I saw, he was in France, and I don't know if he ever got out.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, all that's hackable. I'm gonna throw something at you about the whole privacy thing. I don't know where I read this, but I do remember at the time when Hillary was doing the whole "It Takes a Village," uh, somebody picked up on that as a privacy angle, and they said, and this is crazy because it completely makes sense, uh, but it's wrong. They were making the case to justify a surveillance state. Okay. They were coming into it like this. It takes a village. The village keeps everyone honest with each other. And the example would be in the village in the old days, everyone had tents and everyone's tents opening faced each other. It was a neighborhood watch. They took care of each other. At the same time, that dissuaded you from going to sleep with someone else's woman because your tent flap was right there and everyone else can see it. And this is a justification for a surveillance state. Okay, this is all out of the Hillary Clinton side of the aisle. And this is where this is the bottom line for them. And it just shook me. Privacy is a 20th century invention. It's an industrial age invention. You didn't have privacy before. You're not going to have privacy after. Privacy was an aberration. And I'm like, holy shit. So, and now we're getting into the whole techno state, techno feudalism. I'm a believer that techno feudalism is something that's happening right now. It's in the process of happening right now. But yeah, I mean, there's no privacy. There's no privacy.
You know, as you see, Davos is going on right now in Switzerland, and Trump actually
Yeah,
spoke this morning. Talking about with the agenda and what have you. But I look at these, all these technocrats that are now that put Trump in office. The same people, some of them that were did whatever they could to get rid of him in
yeah,
2020,
yeah,
and now they're all lock, stock, and barrel in line.
yeah.
I'm like, God, is this the new WEF? Is this the new World Economic Forum 2.0? Because there was
Right,
always you always felt that there was some type of civil war going on at the top, right, between the Davos crowd and big tech.
right. Well, okay. I would push back and say not big tech, but I see big tech as capitalists and capitalists picking whoever they think is in first place. But yeah, it's Davos crowd versus the not Davos crowd. That's certainly one way to look at it. Yeah, I agree with you there.
But where they look at it and they say, you know what, we're building all the instruments for this anyway, right? We'll build the identification for voter. We'll build the identification for your citizen. I mean, it'll all be on one platform, but
Yeah,
uh, we're building all these anyway. Why share it? Klaus Schwab and Soros on that side, they're easily disposable. We don't need them.
right,
So let's align ourselves with the MAGA because majority of this country is MAGA and Trump is beloved,
right,
and we'll go that way. And JD Vance is one of our guys. I mean, he's from
right,
Peter Thiel's world.
right. Peter Thiel's probably one of the few legitimate conservatives I think in that group. Ironic because I think he's gay. It's so funny to like Besant is gay. It's like, who cares about what your sexual preference is? But Your comment about the technocrats and how they um, that could very well be true. And I bet you on an individual case, decisions were made that way. But I view it a little bit more ideologically, meaning there's the left, there's the right, and there's capitalists. And capitalists want to make sure they're on the right side of what's going on. So using Musk as an example, because it's easier and so obvious. Here's a guy who had a business who wanted to succeed, not just make money, he wanted to affect change. He was married to someone who was very left of center. He moved to California. He glommed up subsidies like it was no one's business. Now, mind you, he understood that the politicians were he tapped into what do you call it, the zeitgeist. Green energy, the world's coming to an end, voters want that. So he's like, okay, you pay me money, I will build what's going to get you reelected. And it worked. And then it got a little bit too woke, right? And he said, okay, this is kind of a little bit goofy. But he also, to his credit, again, saw it as being overdone, and he pivoted to conservative. And I look at everyone else in that community, technocrat side. Now, I'm not talking about surveillance yet, but that's what Musk is doing, surveillance stuff now. I look at everyone on that side, and I say they all followed Musk's lead at various points when it was safe for them, but they weren't making as much money. They didn't take any risk. So when I look at your run of the mill technocrats, I say, Silicon Valley will say, I'll say they all just want to make money. And they all want to make money. They all want to hold government by the balls, to your point about, well, we're doing the technology. We don't need them. But government has the ability to take money from them, tax them or shut them out. The Constitution is the problem for these guys. And so at some point they realized it wasn't worth their time to fight the conservatives anymore. Now Davos and the WEF, that's a different thing. And what I mean is they went along with Davos. I'm paraphrasing Tom Lumongo here. There's Davos and there's the Davos, the Biden junta in the U.S., which epitomizes, the woke continental mindset, but represented in the U.S. Well, the technocrats were like, okay, we have the lever. We have the technology is the hammer, right? Okay, so we have the surveillance technology that you're describing. We want to make money off of it. How are we going to make money off of it? Well, the left wants us to surveil everyone on their behalf. Okay, what do we get out of it? Well, we're going to get preferential treatment, and if we don't do it, they're going to stomp on us, kind of like what Zuckerberg is claiming. The right's saying, well, you know what? We don't need you to surveil everyone, but we'll have you do this or that, or you'll collect taxes with it. They're going to collect tax. Government doesn't do anything except take revenue from, I'm starting to sound like a capital L libertarian. Government doesn't have any skill at all, and it's going to basically use technology to manage money. I don't know where I'm going with this, except to say that I think the technological moguls are going to go wherever the money is. They're going to go wherever whoever's in charge, and it's going to be easier for them to make money on the right than it would have been on the left, because the left seemed to like threaten them, and the right seems to reward them. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Isn't it, to me though, and I don't disagree with you, but these are the people that did everything they could and spent hundreds of millions of dollars in 2020 to make sure that he would not get back in.
Right. Okay, so the counter, right? The tennis matches, yeah. And if he didn't get back in, they would get big government contracts. And if he got back in, they would say they forced us to do it, and that's what they're doing. I just see them as businessmen. You do what you have to do. If you're a sociopath with a little bit of narcissism thrown in, you're going to be like, I do what I have to do to make money. And that's it. It's not to say Elon Musk, for example, doesn't believe in freedom. He doesn't believe in an uncensored society. He can profit off of it. I mean, here's a guy, here's a guy who's for ending subsidies for green energy now. He wouldn't have a business if it wasn't for subsidies for green energy. So everyone forgives him for that on the right because
He's one of
green
us.
is
He's one of us.
He's one of us. Oh yeah, I want to be. It's I'm right. There's an identification. By the way, that's it. There's an identification thing there. It's like, he's one of us, right? He's one of us is the expression that we all say, but the poor lower middle class guy who's saying that, what he's really saying is, I'm like him. I could be as rich as him. No, no, you can't. You know, he's one of us. Yeah,
You saw him
that's
go
right.
Orwellian though when that H-1B visa thing came out. I mean, all of a sudden he was just on a warpath.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, did he go off his meds on that? That's like there's an example like the that's a really good point because how do you say his name? Vivek, is that his name?
Yeah,
First name? We'll just stay with that, Ramaswamy. Vivek started that whole up, right? He's like basically saying simplifying. Americans have become fat and lazy, and therefore we need to have these experts come in to do the work, and which is the opposite of making America great again from the immigrant point of view. And so Vivek really screwed up, and Elon fucked up. I believe he fucked up in that respect. You're right. Like when Elon came out and went, he defended H-1B and not Elon tried to bridge the divide. And Elon, in this, I got to tell you, in this case, I think he's right. We have to have H-1B workers. We do, right? Not the way that we do. It's become basically something that's just gamed. It's like I remember, like I had employees, like I had a trading operation. I was like, oh, this guy's. I ran an ad in New York Times, right? And I had a lot of Russians, and they weren't citizens yet. They applied, and the guy's like, I'd have to get an H-1B visa. And I talked to my lawyer, and straight up lawyer, straight guy, and he goes, well, can anyone else do the job that he's going to be hired for? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, you can't hire him because you're wrong. He's not a specialty person. And if I wanted to game the system, I would have had to say, well, he's got something that the Americans can't do. What? Speak Russian? We're talking about, mid-office work. And all these tech guys, they live off of H-1B because they're hiring pennies on the dollar, bringing them here, and that's like Elon's lifeblood. Absolutely. Yeah, he protected his. That's my point. When push comes to shove, he's going to protect his ability to make money. That wasn't ideological. He went off the rails.
well, and also too, the more people you employ from other countries, H-1B for example,
Right?
you're in control because
How do you mean?
it's not easy for you to just go quit if you're one of these employees, say you're from India or
Oh
Mexico.
shit! Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's indentured servitude. It's basically, yeah, you can't quit. Oh
You got
shit,
to
that's
find another
right.
company. You got to find another company that's going to be willing to take that on. I've
That's
seen that.
right.
I've encountered that in companies I've worked for before, and I don't buy it for a sex. I'm thinking of one person individually. Uh, Complete control.
See, that's granular. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's right. Once I hire you, you're mine. And I'm going to work you 80 hours a week because I remember this when I started on Wall Street. I'm going to work you 80 hours a week because you want to do it, because you're enthusiastic, because you're all about the American dream. I'm going to underpay you. I'm going to screw you on your bonus. And by me working you 80 hours a week, you're not going to have time to interview anywhere else. You're screwed. You're stuck with me. It's indentured servitude. Wow. That's a good point.
And what are you going to do about it? Like, what? You're not going to do shit.
You're not going to do shit. You're not going to do shit. Yeah, that's right. You have no recourse. Oh shit! I should have hired that guy from Russia then.
But
I
that's what
screwed
to me.
up.
That's what that is more important than I think than all of it because they don't do they don't want the power to go back to the people, right? Let's say you couldn't do any of it, right? You had to hire everybody from within the United States. Now there'd be such a labor shortage that John Smith would be able to dictate or negotiate a much higher wage for that job than, somebody from, say, India or
Oh no,
Mexico.
absolutely, dude, absolutely. Let's tech. I'm going to add more to that. Technology is a high turnover business. It's like finance. You get a job, you get a contract that lasts 2 years, and you renegotiate. Well, you renegotiate or you leave. There's people hopping around like in finance because it's a high paying profession. Your reduced turnover is big. Turnover, like at a when you lose an employee, you lose like if instead of giving something like if someone asks for a 10% raise, if you don't give it to them, it costs you 30%, something like that. So reducing turnover is probably really big for technology companies to not have guys like jumping ship every year. I think that's significant. That's a really solid point. I agree. I agree. Yeah, I didn't even think about that at all.
And that's why he got all snappy and defensive when people started criticizing him. And he was literally taking people's blue checks away, so they have lose the
Yep.
ability
I
to
remember
subscriptions.
he can really go off the rails, and that's the funny thing is he I you know I don't know. Look, I have two sides of me with Elon Musk. One of them is a friend of mine, Tom, and every time I talk to him about Elon, he'll say to me, very, very black Irish, dark humor. He'd be like, I'm like, in 2016, I was writing about Elon's finances and how Tesla was being financed. I'm like, oh my God, this is a disaster, and it worked because he kept getting subsidies. But back then, 2016, Tom, this is horrible. How could this not collapse? And he'd be like, Vince, never bet against, never, never bet against Werner Braun. And I'm like, Werner Braun? Like, I didn't connect it. I'm like, what do you mean Werner Braun? He's not a Nazi. He's like, he's from South Africa, apartheid. Werner Braun landed, Tang, rockets, Werner Braun. They love him in the U.S. at the government level. It gets them reelected. And here we are 8 years later. And I'm like, or 6 years later, I'm like, they're going to get him. They're going to get him, not happy about him. Like, they're going to get the left is really going to get him now that he's changed colors. He's like, Vince, never bet against Werner Braun. And so bringing it back to your point, this guy is like the Teflon Don. He is his own worst enemy publicly, and he can get away with it. And that's because they know how to redirect things. And I think on some level, he's got a really deep relationship with the government that protects him without being paranoid about it, without being a military intel person about it, but who knows military intel people. It's like he's an influencer. Forget about Twitter influencers. Government loves influencers. Oh, we need some. We just put Malay in Argentina. We need someone to go down and negotiate for us to get lithium. That's what they're doing. We need someone to attack Brazil now that we're in Argentina, and he's attacking Brazil. Attacking Venezuela, attacking the left in England. He's attacking everyone. It's like he's a walking regime change person now. And I'm like, how does he get away with all this shit? Why is no one pushing back? He's Teflon. Ever since he said the SEC can suck Elon's, COCK, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'd be arrested for saying that. Anyone big would be in a lot of. There's no shade, and he gets away with it. So how does he say that shit and not get pushback? I don't know, man. It's like he's Citizen Kane, you know?
And what is his wealth based on? Right? And I'm gonna, I said this before. I credit Whitney Webb and the work that she does, putting information out in regards to Elon. What his money's all based on government contracts. So what you just said, that's where
Oh
he made
yeah.
his fortune. And Teslas, they're not good cars.
No. Here's a statistic. When I was doing research on Elon back in the day, it was at the time it was three separate companies. It was SpaceX, it was Solar City, and it was Tesla. And just the Tesla portion, this is how stupid the government is. Okay, right? Okay, I want to be like he's an opportunistic fuck, but this is how stupid the government is. He went to the government and said, give me X amount of money for a loan, and I will build you a full self-driving, blah, 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 electric car. And I have the article, I have the research somewhere, but it came down to they put in, I'm making a number up. This is nothing I'm making up. They put in $10 million and he put in $1 million. That's what he had available. At least that's what he said. And they cut a deal with him for 3% rate of return. Now, it may have been more than that, but he had the option to pay it off early. So the government got paid 3% on the money they loaned him. So they basically took venture capital risk and got paid CD rates. And he took venture capital risk and got paid 1,500% on that particular trade. So he completely hosed them. And then the subsidies went on. And I was very much looking at energy and carbon credits at the time. And I'm like, oh shit, he's getting subsidized for that. And the reason he stayed afloat is not just because of the loan from the government, and he went back to them again. It's because of the subsidies that he got for rebates for cars, and someone mysteriously, and I don't want to make it a big deal, but people were Solar City wasn't making money, okay, but someone was giving him money ahead of time for SpaceX. SpaceX didn't have anything going on, but people were paying for future flights on SpaceX. They were investing in SpaceX by giving him SpaceX money, and then he was giving it to what's his brother's name with the cowboy hat?
Kimball.
Yeah. Like it ended up coming back into Tesla to run it. And I just like did this graphic of it. And then I did some Wall Street Journal research. And I'm like, holy shit, this is a big circle jerk of stuff. And he survived. And that's when the whole like don't bet against Warner Braun stuff started. And I understand. I'm not negative on it. I'm just saying what it is. I can't blame him. Government is that stupid. They wanted to get reelected. So like, yeah, 3% interest rate. Well, I'll give you that data so you can share with your viewers, but it's a nice little simple little chart. But we made like 3% on $10 million and he made like 1,500% on $1 million. And I'm like, we got nothing out of it. Nothing. Like, give us a fleet of cyber trucks to be Humvees. Whether they work or not is a different story. Like, but that's the point. Like, electric cars could be awesome. For example, you can't use an electric car in the military because you have to keep charging it. But what you can do is, if you could swap the batteries, your supply chain moves with you. Why do we not have those? Well, because it's not fucking profitable for him. That's why you can't take your battery out of the iPhone. Anyway, so yeah, it's not so much that he's smart, and he is a genius, but it's so much that everyone is so dumb and atomized and collapsing in intelligence that he's going to put a chip in your brain, right?
Because he wants to rule the world,
right,
and control
right.
it. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I don't have the whole optimism, in the short term where I think this is all going. But also, I say that, and like I said earlier, maybe it doesn't even matter because we're in a surveillance state anyway.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Here's something that really particularly bothered me. It has to do with the surveillance state. This is when I thought of it. Why do we say the word freedoms, plural? We didn't used to say that. It's freedom. You either had it or you didn't. And then post 9/11, I remember George Bush saying, freedoms. It's like they divided and conquered freedoms, right? They atomized them. They went freedoms. Well, if you want to keep your bigger picture freedom, you have to give us a little surveillance state. So your freedoms are now multiple and divided. There's only freedom. There's freedom and not freedom. There's degrees of freedom. And we're giving up degrees of freedom to preserve what we think is going to be our nest egg of freedom. So surveillance state, freedom, gone. That's not of freedom gone. That's freedom gone, privacy, all that shit. I agree. And I'm not a doomer at all on this stuff. I think we're going to come out on the other side. But I do believe the world in general is moving towards an authoritarian setup. And that's where I come down on this. This is as doomer as I get. The the East and the West, China and the United States as examples, right? We this is where the surveillance state comes from. This is why it's happening, I think, in the biggest picture possible. The US wanted to make the world safe for democracy. And the US had been very successful in saying wherever capitalism goes, democracy follows. And it worked. And then they hit China. And capitalism took eventually coming through Singapore because it had to, but democracy didn't. We had color wars in Hong Kong, it didn't work. Okay, so now in China, you have an authoritarian form of capitalism. And in the West, you have a democratic form of capitalism. So they didn't take our democracy, we're taking their authoritarianism. The world is moving towards you know, the color wars are on us. Every time China says, I'm going to do something very authoritarian, the US says, we'll do something less authoritarian. Hey, at least we're not China. That's how they sell it to us. At least we're not censoring you. No, you're just fucking observing every little thing I do. Oh yeah. I think we're moving towards a very authoritarian world. And there's justifications for it with if we don't do this, then that'll happen. You want to be able to you want to be able to go outside, don't you? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well then let us make you go inside at 6 p.m. every night. Like what the fuck is going on here? Yeah, we're moving towards an authoritarian world. That's where my true doomerism comes out of. So,
Where can people find you, Vince?
um, you can find me on Twitter, but that's not as Sorenthek, Soren the K, Soren Kierkegaard. It's an anagram on Soren Kierkegaard. But more to my specialty, you would find me at Substack, Goldfix Substack, where I write about and talk about market based. We talk about these topics, but they're in the concept of capitalism. Where can I make money doing this? But it's mostly it's a focus on precious metals, it's a focus on inflation, it's a focus on economics, and it's a focus on geopolitical ideology. And we'd love to have you, but that's where I am. Goldfix on Substack. That's it.
Vince, thanks for coming on, and look forward to more conversations ahead and following your work. And the great thing about what you do, what I do, there's going to be a lot of entertainment and a lot of opportunity for these types of conversations this year.
Right. I know. We can. I look forward to coming back. Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it. I also appreciate your questions and how you interact and how you get it going. That was very very helpful today. We didn't talk about gold. That's why I'm happy. I love gold, but you get the point.
I
We talked about something else.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, and we'll make gold the priority next conversation.
Yeah, it's going up. I swear. No, it is. It is. All right.
Mic drop.
Thanks.